Hello and welcome to my Stamperia Fortune mini album tutorial series designed for scrap and create. All of the products that I will be using to create this mini album and box will be linked in the description box below, so check those out, purchase your supplies, and follow along. In this tutorial, I'm going to assemble the box for my album. I'm going to be cutting some papers, but before I do, I'm going to be preparing some pieces and allowing them to dry. So I have my two circular pieces and these two smaller pieces here. Now what I'm going to do is apply my adhesive in the center on both sides of one of these pieces here. And then I'm going to insert one of these through this hole and then place this so that it is centered, so there's an equal amount on each side of my piece. I'm just going to wipe off any excess glue, and I'm going to do the same thing with my second set of pieces, applying my adhesive here in the center and then placing this through the hole in the circular piece until it is centered on there, and then just wiping off any excess adhesive. Now I'm going to set those aside and allow those to dry, and then I'm going to prepare some pieces. So from my 12 by 12 paper, I had this paper left over, so I'm going to be using this for the inside sides of my box. These pieces are cut to 3 inches wide by 8 and 1/8 of an inch tall. I'm going to be using these pieces here as my piece that I'm going to cut. This is going to go on here, so I'm going to use this as a guide. So I'm going to place this on the wrong side, like this, right up against the edge. Going to hold that into place so it doesn't shift, and trace that edge. Now when I place this on the front side here, I'm going to need to come down just a little bit from this edge, so I should be able to use my ruler from here, from the corner, following that same slope, and then cutting here. And when I set this on the front, it will be the same size from side to side and a little tiny bit smaller from top to bottom. Now once I have this piece, we're going to take this and flip it over and then trace that onto my second piece because it's the mirror image. And now I have the piece for here. I'm going to go ahead and glue these pieces on first, and then I'm going to come back and cut out this section here. Now I have my pieces covered on the outside. I am not covering my pieces on the inside. Now I am going to start assembling my box. So I have my back piece, I have my base piece. I'm going to be placing these pieces together first. So on my back piece, I'm going to apply adhesive here along this bottom edge. That's where it's going to hit that piece. And then on this little tip here and here. Then I'm going to place these pieces together. like this. Now my first side piece, I need to apply my adhesive to this whole entire edge. And then the bottom edge here. And the inside of the little tiny piece. Then I'm going to snap this together and make sure that the top edge doesn't have anything to snap into, so I just want to make sure that it is lined up straight. I'm going to wipe off any excess adhesive. Going to turn this over and do the same thing with the second side. So I'm going to run my adhesive down this long edge. And then on these little pieces here. And then I'll set this one down in those grooves and wipe off any excess adhesive. Again, making sure that the edge is straight. And now I'm going to take the front piece, it looks like this, and I'm going to run my adhesive here down these edges. And carefully place this. I'm going to snap these in place. Then I'll go ahead and wipe off any excess adhesive. And again, I'm making sure that these side pieces are straight because they don't have anything locking them in at the top. They're just adhered down to that box, and I want to make sure everything is nice and straight. Then I'm going to set this aside and allow this to dry while I work on these two outer side pieces. Now I have to be very careful with how I cut my 12 by 12 paper to get all of my pieces correct. So I'm starting from my bottom right corner and I'm cutting this, I cut this to 7 1/4 by 9 inches. Do not cut straight up because we need this piece here. So 7 1/4 by 9 inches, just set this aside for now. Then we're going to go ahead and cut here 3 inches by 12 inches. And then we're going to cut this to 9 inches. We're going to save this piece. Then we'll have the piece that looks like this. So we're going to cut this. This will be 3 inches by 9 inches. So we're just going to cut this piece off. We're going to have these pieces for the sides, and then this piece will be for the back. So I'm going to turn this piece on its side this way. You can also turn it this direction if you prefer. Taking the piece with the grooves on the left, this will be the right side piece. I'm using the piece with the woman's face on it, and I am going to first just center this here on the piece so that it is equal on each side. And then also at the top and bottom. Then I'm going to take this pencil, and I'm first just placing my marks where the actual curve in my paper is. So I'm going to cut this first. Then I'm going to just take this and about 1/8 of an inch from my edge, I'm going to draw this line where I'm going to cut this so that it has a uniform border with the rest of the piece. Once I have this piece, I'll go ahead to my second piece here. I'm going to use mine with the little flourish piece and the flower in the bottom right corner. I'm just going to set this piece right on top of it and draw around the curved part to cut my second piece. Once I have my pieces cut, I'm going to go ahead and adhere these onto the front sides. Then just like with the previous piece, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. You can either cut it out first or you can wait and cut it out after you're done. I cut mine out when I was finished and I used my craft knife to do so. So I'm going to cover both of these pieces, then we'll come back and start assembling everything. Now I'm going to bring the base of my box back in. We're going to add just a few more papers. So first I have a piece left over from my 8x8 paper that I've cut to 7 1/8 by 3 inches. I'm going to adhere this to the bottom of my box here. Once the bottom is covered, I'm going to flip over to the back side. Now I have this piece here. I did trim 1/8 of an inch off of the side because I wanted this to have just a slight border around it like the other pieces. So I'm going to adhere this down to the back side. Once the paper is on the back, I'm going to turn it on its side and bring in my little circular pieces. And I'm going to be adhering these down into my actual groove in the box. So I'm going to place my adhesive onto that little piece sticking out and then also onto my circular piece. So I have adhesive all over this, and I'm going to adhere this right down into the hole. Now I'm going to press this in and make sure that it's nice and flush. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my second one on the other side, making sure that I have my adhesive applied to that little groove sticking out and the whole back side of the piece, and then placing it right into that groove. And then making sure that these are both flush on the sides. Now I'm going to set this over here and let this dry for a minute. I'm going to bring these pieces in, and I have a piece of my, I think it's the 12x12 that has the stripes on it. I'm going to just set this piece here and trace around it, and then cut this piece out. And then I'm going to trace this piece so that I have 2 of these pieces. My final 2 pieces look like this. So the one that has the little pieces sticking out of the side and the flat edges, the completely flat edge across the top, this is going to be the top piece. The one that has the little divots for those pieces to lock into with this flat edge across the bottom is going to be the front piece. So I'm going to take those pieces and my side pieces here to start assembling this. Now I'm going to take my front piece first, and it's going to go in here like this. So I'm going to apply my adhesive into the groove here and a little bit on each of these smaller ones. Then I'm going to take my front piece and snap it down into there. For now, I'm just going to set it up like this. I'm going to take the second side piece and apply my adhesive into that larger groove and each of these little smaller ones. And then I'm going to adhere this and snap these pieces right into those grooves. Now taking my top piece, I'm going to place my adhesive on these flat edges across the sides and this piece here. Don't mind my puppy as she is having a dream, as she's napping next to my desk. And then once I have the adhesive there, this piece is going to go here. So I'm going to snap that in place, wipe off the excess adhesive, and then I'm going to flip this up so you can see this. So this is what this piece looks like. Now, once this piece is together, I'm going to place it over top of the box. I'm going to just slightly push it over the sides. Then I'm going to set the box up, push everything together and make sure everything is still together because my adhesive isn't yet dry. I did this as soon as I put that together so I could get it on my box. So now I'm just going to make sure everything is set. And this is what the side will look like here. The other side is the same, so you're going to have more room down here because this box will move like this up and down on this track. Now I have these pieces that are going to lock in here and they're going to cover that section. But what I need to do is only apply my adhesive to my little circular piece so that the rest of this piece can actually move behind these pieces. So I'm just going to apply my adhesive very carefully there. Take one of these pieces and press it right down on there. Then I'm going to flip over and do the same thing on the other side. So I'll apply my adhesive to that circular section and then take my second piece. This one's a little tighter, so I'm going to open my box so I can get my hand inside of here to press on this. And once that's on, I'll go ahead and close my box back up. Now I'm going to make sure everything is still in place where it's supposed to be. The last thing that I'm going to do is add these pieces here over top of those oblong pieces that we just put on to lock that in place. So we're just basically hiding that adhesive or that wood. And once my papers are on, I'm going to go ahead and leave this sit and let this dry completely before I come back and we finish up these final 3 pieces with the rice paper. While I'm waiting for my box to dry, I'm going to go ahead and bring my rice paper in and cut this. Now you have to be really careful at how you cut this. There's no room for error here because the entire length of this piece is going to be used. I'm going to first trim this down to 7 1/4 inches. Then from the bottom, I'm going to cut a piece to 5 3/4 of an inch. This piece is going to go here on this bottom section. Then I'm going to cut the next piece to 3 inches, and so this should both be equal. So there is 6 inches. So we're going to cut this into 2 equal pieces of 3 inches each. Then that next piece is going to end up going here. And then the piece above it is going to go on the top for that continuous pattern. I'm going to be using Mod Podge and a sponge brush to put my rice paper on my box. If you have a different type of mixed media product that you prefer, you can definitely use that. But Mod Podge is a really good type of adhesive for rice papers, so I just tend to use that because I have it on hand. Now I'm just putting my Mod Podge on the bottom portion of my box. This is how I like to start my rice papers. Just adding some Mod Podge first. And then I'm going to be placing this centered on here. Making sure everything is straight. Excuse my head for a moment. It's the hardest thing about doing stuff on camera is not being able to fully see the things that I need to see sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and smooth this out, get all those wrinkles out. Then I'm going to add more Mod Podge on the rest of my box front, just a little bit at a time, going through working my Mod Podge on, get that little chunk out, and then smoothing my paper down. So I'm going to take my rice paper here, and again, just keep smoothing this down so that it lays nice and flat. Once I have the bottom portion, I'm going to take my second section here and do the same thing. This piece is small enough that I should be able to put it all on at once, so I'm going to fully cover this top portion with my Mod Podge, and then I will lay down my rice paper. Once I have that put on, I'm going to go ahead and do my top portion. Applying my Mod Podge, and again, just like the previous piece, this is small enough that I should be able to do it all at once. So I'm just going to cover this top with my Mod Podge, and then I'll lay my rice paper right down on top of it. Now, once you do have your rice papers on, you can add a layer of Mod Podge on top of your papers. It will actually protect it. It adds a little bit of a different sheen to it. So if you want that matte look, even with the matte Mod Podge, it's going to put a little bit of a different look than the rice papers. So you just want to be careful. Oh, I got to be careful there too, because I'm ripping my paper. I haven't had that happen before. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then I'm going to come back and add some embellishments. I'm going to add one of the Graphic 45 antique metal door pulls to my upper portion to help me to pull this down to get my album out. So I've just taken this and centered my ruler and added my piece so that it is basically on the center. I've put my ruler almost up against the edge of the top portion. I then drew in the holes where I needed to pierce this. I've taken my piercing tool on the first one and just pierced down through here very carefully. So I have the other one marked. I'm going to show you how I did this. So just very carefully, starting nice and easy to go through the rice paper and the wood. And you just need to mark this and carefully just keep piercing through here. You don't want to break the wood, obviously. You could use a very, very tiny drill bit if you prefer. I'm just going to keep working this in until I feel it's all the way through and the hole is big enough for the brad to go through. And look on the back side to double check to see that it is all the way through, and mine is. So now I'm going to sit my little pull on first. I'm going to turn this around so it's a little easier for me to see this. I'm going to place the ends of my brad down through the first hole and then down through the second hole. And now holding on to this so that they don't fall out, I'm going to flip in here to the underside and open up those prongs to secure the brad into place. Now I'm taking a piece of my cardstock that's cut to about 1 inch by 3 inches, and I'm going to place this over top those prongs to try to help this to stay in there securely so that it doesn't pull out. So I'm just going to lay that piece right down over top of my pieces. And then it's a little awkward getting your hand in here, but once this starts to grip that wood, you can go ahead and use your bone folder to adhere this down so that it's as flat as you possibly can get it. And this will help to pull this part down so that you can access your album. But it'll be standing up, so it'll help to pull that box top down. Now I'm going to be adding some metal corners to my box. When you order from Scrap and Create, you only get 2 of the large and 2 of the small, but I don't always use these on my projects, so I have a lot of extra ones. So if you follow any of my other tutorials, you are likely to have some extra ones as well. If not, you can just add the 4 that you have, but I'm going to be using 8 on my project, 4 large and 4 small. If you're only using the ones that came with the Fortune collection, put the 2 large ones on the bottom corners and the 2 small ones on the top corners. If you have enough to do additional, I'm going to put 4 large on my top and then 4 small on my bottom. I'm going to put 4 large on the bottom and 4 small on the top. And if you are new to using something like metal embellishments, you want to make sure that you're using appropriate adhesive so that they don't fall off. I'm using a matte gel medium for mixed media products. You can use E6000, it works really well. But I definitely don't recommend using tacky glue for this because it typically will not hold these. Now while I'm waiting for those metal corners to dry, I did add 3 of the metallic pearls just down here to the centers of these circular patterns in my rice paper, and that's all I'm going to add. So if you want to add additional embellishments, you can. You've got some of the cut apart still from the collection, you've got some of your adhesive paper cutouts, and you've got other things that you can use. So you can go ahead and do whatever you choose. Now I am not covering the inside of my box, but if you wanted to do that with some additional paper, if you have extra papers, you can go ahead and do so. But that is all for this tutorial. So once the box is done, I'm going to let it completely dry. Then I'm going to slide my album down inside and we are done. Thank you so much for joining the Stamperia Fortune mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. If you have just joined the tutorial series, don't forget to check out the links in the description box below where you can purchase all those supplies that you would need to follow along to make this entire project. Thank you so much to Scrap and Create for providing all of the materials, and thank you so much for watching.